Hey everyone, it's Brandon from the Rheology Podcast. Have you ever wondered where the Bible came from? I mean, where it actually came from, who wrote it, and when? Some say it can't be trusted because it was written by men, not God. On today's episode, we'll talk about how to better understand the writers of the Bible and their credibility. Welcome back.
Hey friends, welcome to the episode. Thanks for joining. How's everybody doing today?
Great.
Yes?
I think so.
Chris is doing great. He's already he's earned his cookie for the day.
He did
I
earn his
did.
cookie.
He got a cookie, and Tyler not so much.
Yeah.
Wow.
What's the opposite of cookie? Cookie got taken away.
He did. He got cookie. He got taken away. Got
Yeah,
thrown
so
into the toilet and flushed.
I got dog doo-doo.
Ooh, not in the
Yeah.
not in the toilet though.
Oh.
Not in the bathroom.
Yeah, I'm not allowed on the bathroom anymore.
Yeah.
In the office.
Tyler desecrated the sacred
Oh my gosh.
ornaments of the
It
Ornaments.
just making it sound
the
like
decorations.
Tyler
of the,
doesn't know how to use the bathroom.
He apparently gets distracted in the bathroom, and he likes to move the studio bathroom.
I just love
around.
a
Mischief.
I love a good-hearted mess around.
Yeah.
This is
And this-
just fun.
The
Just having
studio
fun.
manager, the admin,
Yeah.
aka my wife,
She got mad.
said let's revoke his access.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Get his badge, take his badge
Yeah.
away.
Card,
Yeah,
his access card.
Take his badge away.
Okay, so today we're going to talk
But you still have a badge for a
Okay.
tree.
Gosh.
So you have a badge for a tree. You have access to all the trees in the back. Just keep
Oh,
that in
nice.
mind.
Tyler.
Thanks. Now I'm relegated to my 5-year-old loves peeing in the backyard.
Who don't?
Yeah.
You do?
Gosh, yes.
You don't pee next to your son?
You know,
Are we talking about
what are
this?
we
you and
talking
the
about?
boys peeing together out in the backyard?
No, we don't do that.
Then how do you learn how to do that?
It's so natural.
Oh.
You had to teach your son how to pee in the
You have to
backyard?
listen.
No,
you
he
have
just
to
followed by example.
you potty
By model.
train.
Yeah.
That doesn't come naturally.
We
But
don't
us
have a
peeing
big
in
backyard
here,
like
there, and
you do.
everywhere. That does.
You have a backyard enough to pee in.
Well, we had to take the fence down. There's really no room to.
Yes.
Oh, did you really have to do that?
That's a story for another
Yeah,
time.
Are we-
I'll tell
are we
you
recording
later,
right now?
'cause,
It's recording.
Yeah. You have to tell me later.
Okay,
Yeah.
you ready, Scott?
Yeah. Let's hear it. What do you got?
So today we're going to talk about the Bible
Okay.
and if it's reliable,
Mm.
is it authentic,
Mm.
and is it believable?
Mm.
Um,
So that's
yeah,
what people are saying about it.
I think a lot of people are
Yeah.
saying that. Even people that read the Bible,
Yeah.
even Christians.
Right. I bet.
So yeah.
I bet.
Yeah, and before we started recording, Scott, you mentioned that you had a ghost story. Speaking of believable or unbelievable things, I'm curious.
Yeah. I guess
What that
maybe some people who do read the Bible or think about it maybe think it's just folklore. And maybe it is a bunch of ghost stories. I
Yeah.
do have a ghost story because people do ask me, and especially my kids, they're like, "Do you believe in ghosts and stuff like
Yeah.
that?" And there are a lot of people that, and I've met a lot of Christians say like, I don't believe in spirits. I'm like, I'm not even the Holy Spirit. And then they go, "Oh, wait a minute," and that's kind of what we're talking about, like
Right.
the actual
Holy Ghost.
yeah, the thing that's combined with the body that makes a person whole, a
Right.
soul.
Yeah, yeah.
So I was in college and I did an internship, a summer internship in Florida. And when the summer internship was over, I drove up and stayed with some friends of mine from college. And they were 3 girls. Two of them were cousins, and one other was just their friends. They all lived in the same town in Carrollton, Georgia. And Sabrina, Penny, and Tina. So I stayed with
wow.
Sabrina. Sabrina's like, "Listen, I'm staying in my grandparents' farmhouse for the summer."
Oh, bad idea.
These all sound
And-
like ghost story names.
Yeah,
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So why don't you just come up and hang out with us for like the week? Because it was literally a week. And here I was in Florida. I wasn't going to drive all the way to Indiana
Of course.
and then come all the way back down to Tennessee. So like, why don't you just come here? We'll stay here and then we'll go to school together. So I'm like, cool. So I drove up and I stayed with Sabrina. Sabrina was nannying for a couple. So she was gone like every night. So here I am in this old, it's very nice, but an old farmhouse, like your traditional like white farmhouse with porch kind of a deal, 3-story, I think. And so every night I slept in like one of the main, master bedrooms on the front of the house, and I, whoop-de-whoop, no big deal. So one night, Tina and Penny said, "Hey, we'll come over and hang out with you." and stay, let's go and grab some food and then we'll go grab some movies. And so we like stayed up late goofing around, and like all of a sudden it turned into like this water fight at like 1 a.m.
You guys are water fighting?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
I mean, like it turned
You're just
up with
spraying
like
each other with a hose?
Well, almost. It
What
started
kind of
off with like,
sleepover are we having?
relax.
Does Robin know
It
about
started,
this?
yes, it started as a squirt gun kind of thing. And
Sure.
then it's like, I'll one up that and I'll one up that. And then it's like,
Wow.
I got a pot of water and it's like, okay, relax.
Good old fashioned college fun.
So-
yeah. It's what we all did.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. So I was probably 21 or 22, something like that.
Prime.
So, so we all like chilled out. And at this point, it's like almost 2 a.m, something like that. And we start get ready for bed and the lights go out and everything. And I'm laying in bed with my back to the door. And so the bedroom I'm staying in is, and the one that they were staying in shares a bathroom. It's like they call like a his and her bathroom or
Jack
something
and
like
Jill.
that. Jack and Jill. And so, so I'm sleeping and I'm trying to sleep and I have my back to the door and I'm laying there and I'm having a hard time falling asleep. And then all of a sudden I just feel like someone's watching me. And, I roll over and I look at the door and I see 2 figures on either side of the doorway. And when I look at them, they both, they leave the doorway. And
Like
I'm
they
like,
were inside the
I just
room?
got
no.
chills.
They're at the door.
Threshold.
They're at the
Outside.
the doorway. They're outside, like peeking in, looking around the corner.
Oh
like,
my gosh.
Yeah. And so of course I'm thinking it's Tina.
It's Tina and Penny.
And Penny.
Yeah,
and I'm
yeah.
like, they're going to try to like douse me with water.
Right.
And it's not over. So I'm laying there going, I better get up and like end this because it's not going to end if I
Yeah.
don't like go end this. So I get up, I go out the door, I go down the hallway. And as I come to their door, I can hear one of them say, "Scott's coming." And so I come in the doorway and they're both laying in bed and they look at me and I said, "Hey, fun and games, we can resume tomorrow, but we need to get some sleep. Let's call a truce. Is that okay? Everybody come?" Yeah, sure. Truce. So go back to bed, fall asleep. Next morning I wake up and they're all awake and Sabrina is there and she's making breakfast. And I wake up and I come stumbling in and they're all like, "Hey, come sleepyhead," and whatever. And they're like, "Man, you walked in your sleep last night and were talking to us." I was like, "I did?" And they're like, "Yeah, you came
Oh.
down to our room and like, hey, let's call a truce." I was like,
Oh.
"I was not walking in my sleep." They're like, "You weren't?" I'm like, "No, I saw you guys at the doorway and I knew that you were going to try to get me with water. I came down there to put an end to it." And they're like, "We weren't in the doorway." I'm like, "Yes, you were. Yes, you were." They're like, "No, we weren't."
Wow.
I was like, "Yeah, you were." And the whole time Sabrina's got her back to us, like, and in the kitchen, 'cause it's a big open area. And I just so vividly remember her, she had the water on. She turns the water off, grabs a rag and dries her hands off.
Yeah,
and she
she's
kind of
like-
slowly turns around and
Yeah.
she goes, "Well, those were my grandparents."
Oh,
No way.
And I'm like,
oh boy.
"What?" And they're like, "That's my grandparents. They both died in this house." And I'm like, "Bull crap," whatever. It went on and on and on. She's like, "Scott, I'm not kidding you." And they're like, we weren't up. Matter of fact, Penny was asleep. I was waking her up, letting her know you were coming. We thought you were coming to get us. And I'm like, I'm in like freakish denial at this point.
Of course.
So later on that night, we went
Oh,
down
you slept
to.
another night there.
Oh, I had to.
Oh, no,
I had to.
I'm
It
not
was-
sleeping
Yeah,
anywhere
yeah,
near that
yeah.
house.
So that night, Sabrina said, "My parents have invited us to dinner. They live just across the road." And so we walked down to their house and we're over there and she's like, "Hey, Dad, guess who Scott ran into last night?"
Oh, wow.
And he's like, "Who?" And she goes, "Grandma and Grandpa." And he goes, "Oh, did you?" And I'm like, So I'm still not believing it. And he said, "Well, listen, they don't mean any harm." He said, we have had multiple sightings of them.
No
In that house.
way.
And that's, literally when we were walking back, I was like, I'm not staying in that house by myself.
Yeah.
Not doing it. So that night, like, I don't think I hardly had any sleep.
Who's sleeping?
Yeah. I shut the doors and the whole deal. And I think we stayed one more night after that, and I'm like, we're leaving. We're getting out of here. So we went. But so I still keep in touch with her through Facebook. And
Wow.
Like,
That's crazy.
Wait, what did you see? What did they look like?
just figures.
I don't know what that means.
Because it's probably dark.
It was dark.
So you just saw people.
But I saw people.
Peeking through.
I didn't see.
the door.
I saw no details.
Could you see through them?
No.
They're ghosts.
It's
You
dark.
can
They
see
look
through ghosts,
powdery.
guys.
Yeah, but
It's like
it's
a
not.
shadow.
It's
You can
not
see through a
like
shadow.
it's
Did you
not
hear their
like you see
chains?
a white mist going. I didn't see a white mist. I saw two dark
It was just
shadows.
a blanket. A white blanket.
No, it was not a white blanket. All right, we're done. Done
That's
with that.
terrifying. I've never seen
True
a ghost.
story. I have other weird stories I'll share at some other point that are absolutely true and will probably freak you out. But anyway,
That's a story for another time, I guess.
these stories do kind of sound like. I mean, we're going to try to make a segue here.
Yeah.
You don't have to try. Just okay.
But it is kind of a
That's
natural thing. People do think that. I do think that people do think that the Bible is nothing but a bunch of folklore, and it's like it's
Yeah.
good. It's good ancient Middle Eastern
Mythology.
culture writings, and it's their mythology. It's what they believed, and it's how they lived their lives, and and that it's just the same as like every other like mystical culture and how they worshiped a god and all this kind of stuff. And you got to definitely kind of like tip your hat to that, because I'm not going to sit here. I don't think you guys will either. Sit here and not look at some of the stuff that happened in the Old Testament and go like, yeah,
That's crazy.
kind of some crazy stuff, and highly unbelievable for sure. But the bottom line is that it is as we have said before, it's a narrative. It's one big long story with a bunch of different pieces. And so, once you kind of take a deeper dive, things start to kind of like make sense. But here's some facts. We've actually done some of these before. Let's see if you guys know some of these facts.
Yeah.
Do you know how many authors that are in a part of writing the whole narrative of the Old Testament and New Testament? How many authors it might be? Any ideas? Chris is counting them. He's up to 3 so far. Just a wild stab.
I'm
I would
like
say
18.
18?
12.
12. It's around 40.
Oh,
It's around 40.
Really?
Yep. And they're stemming from people like Moses, David, Solomon, Daniel. And in the New Testament, obviously, when something's named by the name, it's probably the author. Paul, Matthew.
Oh, that's true.
So there's a
Like
total of right
John,
around about 40. Some people say 36 and
Ruth,
some people say 40. So it's right around there.
Esther.
Here's a question is how much time from the first writer to the last writer?
oh man.
Wild guess.
It's in the thousands, correct?
Over 1,000.
It's over 1,000,
Like a
under
3?
2,000.
It's under 2?
Yeah.
Oh,
All right.
okay. 15.
Yeah. There you go. Around 1,500 years
That's crazy.
from the first
Yeah.
writer to the last writer. So, and I've put it in the notes here. Maybe we'll share this online or something like that. But of all the people and the kind of the timeline of who wrote what, and these are just some of these are not absolutes because we don't know for sure on certain things. Moses wrote a lot of stuff. Matter of fact,
Right.
Moses is attributed to the first 5 books
Mhm.
of the Bible, the Torah, the Pentateuch, whatever you want to call it. And so, but it goes through quite a long list. And then Paul wrote quite a bunch,
Right.
in the New Testament as well. So here's something we've talked about. Let's see how you retain information here.
Not good.
The English word Bible means what?
English word Bible?
Yep. Our English word Bible, which is
book.
Mm.
Chris says book.
Is it a description of book? Like, is it the good book or holy book?
No.
Oh, I don't know.
Bible
Books.
does mean books. It's a collection of books.
Oh.
So the Latin is
Nice,
that
Chris.
one of the famous.
Biblioteca.
Yeah, that's Chris. Remember that.
Yeah.
So the Latin phrase
That's library, which makes
it
sense.
is,
Yeah.
There you go. So the Latin phrase that kind of gets thrown around a lot is ta biblia sacra, which is the sacred books. And then of
Okay.
course English language, is infamous for taking phrases like that and just shrinking it down to one word, Bible. And it is a made up English word. Bible. We could have just used sacred books or the collection of the sacred books, the sacred writings. We could do all that, but instead we call it Bible. This is interesting. This is from Wycliffe Bible Translators. That at least one portion of the scripture, of all of it, has been translated for over 3,350 of the over 7,000 existing languages on the planet. Oh. So almost half, right at half of the existing languages has at least some part of the Bible translated in their native language. And the Bible is in its entirety has been translated in about 680 languages. So very, very popular book. Obviously, every time you go to a hotel, there's probably one in a drawer somewhere. The question, though, as you said, Tyler, is like in people's minds, though, is it divine?
Yes.
Is it divine?
I did say that, didn't I?
Is it divine? Is it something more? And that's what I mean by divine. Is it something more than just, a classic tale like Romeo and Juliet or Moby Dick or To Kill a Mockingbird or for my good buddy Jason, I'll mention Grapes of Wrath. He's a Steinbeck fan. Is it that? Is it just that? Is it classical writing or is it more? That's the question. And I don't know about you guys, but I feel like there's a lot of people that, as you said as well, who actually do read it and still don't see it as maybe more. And that there are some real road bumps, speed bumps to get over, hurdles to overcome for it to really feel.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people also don't know how to hold in their head that it could be divine. Right? Because it's not okay, sure, I can say it's divine, but what does that even mean? And how does that work with humans? So then they either fully every word, or what is it? It's they have to take every word literally, right? Everything happened the way I am perceiving it to happen.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because I was told that this is God wrote it with his hand, I guess. Or they're that doesn't make any sense. So I'll just use it as inspirational classic literature.
Yeah.
Because I think they don't know how to hold the in between those two things.
Yeah. Yeah. It's almost like if it's either one or the other.
Yeah.
And if it's in the middle, it's
I
false.
don't know how to do that.
It's
Yeah.
false. It's not even real.
That's right.
Because it can't, there's a reason why we have transliterations and literal translations. And there are some people that are incredibly dogmatic about, literal translations. And they look at the message and go I would never read that. I don't like the way that sounds. I like just the way, the King James rolls off the tongue and
these and thous.
It's poetry and this message stuff is, and it's paraphrased.
Yeah.
You hear that. It's paraphrased. Oh, no, I may read some part of it, but I'm going to back it up with good old King James or NIV or New American Standard or whatever. One of these versions these translations that are literally translated. And in their mind, I think you're dead on. They do definitely believe that every piece of the Bible from Genesis all the way down to Revelation is absolutely literal. And 7 days God created everything in 7 days. And I'm not saying that God didn't create everything in 7 days. And I'm not saying that he's not capable of doing that. But there's a good possibility that it's poetry.
Yeah.
And I think
it's not meant to be taken literally.
I had probably until the last 5 years, I really didn't know how to hold what the Bible actually is, because I think has to be all right. It has to be all black and white.
Yep.
And I didn't like the idea of it's up to it's human writing, so it can be just up into interpretation. But it wasn't until I did a lot more studying and research what the Bible actually is and how it's hard for me to say this, but it's almost like you have to be taught how to read the Bible.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Right. That sounds bad because I guess the Spirit can work the way it he works
Mm-hmm.
through reading the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I think you have to be taught how to read it correctly.
Yeah, you do.
Otherwise, it's not going to be. It's an improper tool.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think it all depends upon context.
Yeah.
And you definitely have to learn context before you can read. It is an ancient Middle Eastern manuscript. There's no doubt about that. It's not an American manuscript. It's not British. We'd have probably no problem with that.
Yeah.
You know, it might as well just be, you know, Pig Latin at this point, or, you know, a foreign, you know, an alien language for us at this point. And it's not that we can't like look at it and go, well, that's just the way they were, and they were weird, and they, you know, justify it that way. The reality is they were real people. They had we're all in the same boat with just living life as human beings. They had full gambit of emotions like we do. They had their you know, struggles, and they had things that they had to, you know, deal with and fight through and all that kind of stuff. But I think it is definitely important to understand context, and, you know, when it's written, especially for the Bible is written in a, number one, it's written in a foreign land and what we understand totally. And it's definitely written in a foreign time than what we understand. The New Testament, we can probably get way more with that. I would guess. I mean, when I started reading the Bible, I didn't start with like Genesis or Exodus or whatever. Correct. I started with something that was a little easier to read. So I think most people probably live more in the New Testament than they do the Old Testament. Something that, you know, we have talked about the Bema podcast. And if you are listening, I'm going to look at the camera. If you're listening or watching, if you want to do like what Chris is talking about, where you can really start to educate yourself about understanding more of what the Bible is and how to read it, especially how to read it. The Bema podcast with Marty Solomon is an incredible place to do that, because he literally is going to go from chapter to chapter and give you a really great overview of, you know, what they're written for and why. Like most people think that Genesis is a literal book, right? And it's just a historical recording of all the things that happen. Oh, well, because it seems that way, right? I mean, from the very beginning, it starts there. Oh, okay. And then it goes here, and then it goes here, and it goes, and that's true, but it actually was more written in the idea of being, you know, poetry for people to easily remember, instead of an actual like documentary of all the stuff that happened. But so one thing that Marty says, and I love it, and N.T. Wright talks about this a lot too, and that's why we have kind of hinted around about that in this podcast, of the Western culture mentality of Christianity, and not just Christianity, but the Bible primarily as an Eastern idea, and looking at it through a Western lens. And we typically look at things as like, well, show me the proof.
Correct.
Show me the proof. We want to look at Genesis as the documentary. Here in Genesis 4:18, it says he did that. So then he did that. And that's how we process it. But unfortunately, the way that they processed information was experiential. It was experience and not necessarily, you know, the facts and being analytical minded. And so therefore that's the way they wrote.
So, but there's a difference between the Old Testament and New Testament in that way, correct? Is that what you're saying? Because like you said, like the New Testament kind of is more but this is what's happening, versus the Old Testament being, a lot of it being poetry,
say it's
right?
book by book. Because I don't think you can also, because even in the New Testament, there is this like story of Jesus, which is different from the letters, right?
Yes,
because I think the stories of Jesus is a different genre than letters than it is from like the genre of Genesis to like the Psalms or like the Minor Prophets, right? These are all different genres that you have to understand. Oh, what genre am I reading in? Because I wouldn't take because it's not that genres are fiction or nonfiction,
but
it's more of like how, like the style that it was written.
How are they trying to communicate?
Right?
The writer house.
Because even like when we talk about Western versus Eastern, I think people still don't understand that.
No,
right? Because what are you talking? What if it's not Western? What are you talking about? Because all of our knowledge, is consumed through a Western lens. So we didn't even know what an Eastern lens would look like, because who among us is consuming anything out of an Eastern lens?
Right.
Yeah. Well, we have to rely on people who've been to the East.
Yes.
And
right.
said, this is what I found out. One thing he talks about, is that for them, what was most important is that God did something, not how he did it.
Yeah. Yes.
They didn't really care about how he did it.
Yeah,
they just wanted to know that he did it.
Yeah.
And so therefore, when God creates creation, they don't really care if it's 7 days, 6 days, 80 days, 5 million days. They don't really care. That's not really the point.
Right.
The point that he's a creator. So the Western lens goes, okay, great. I see he's a creator, but how?
Yeah.
And when and where and why?
Why? Yep.
And that's kind of how our culture is set up to process information. Not just our culture, but even European culture, very much the same way. So for them, it's about the experience. As far as the New Testament goes, New Testament is primarily writing down a lot of what Jesus said, or Acts is the single historical book, and it is a documentary, basically a recording of what happened. But bottom line is that all of that is predicated on the same culture. It's all predicated on the Old Testament. So a lot of the things that Jesus would have done or said, or the people would, how they would have reacted is definitely predicated and founded on the same culture that you would find in the Old Testament. Yeah. So like just for instance, I think, so if I was mentioning Jason, my buddy Jason, we've had several conversations about can you fully know God through just a New Testament lens? Well, we kind of decided to end this episode right here. It kind of ran a little long, so we thought we'd split it into 2 parts. So this is the end of part 1, and we really hope that you'll come back next week and join us for part 2, where we'll end the conversation of why the Bible actually is trustworthy, even though men did write it. So we'll hope to see you next time.
From the whole Rheology team, we hope these podcasts are encouraging and educational. Rheology exists for 3 main reasons: to reach, train, and equip those who want to go deeper with God in this partnership called Ecclesia. If God has been stirring in your heart, where you are wondering if there's more than what you've been experiencing in today's 21st century Christianity, we'd love to connect with you, to hear your story and help you know that you are not alone. You can simply contact us via the website, rheologylife.com, or reach out via Instagram at rheology_life. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.